I have some technicals for you in this video that are super interesting and super important to SPY, QQQ, IWM, and then also Bitcoin and XRP. I think that every one of them has just an extremely interesting chart that puts up some significant opportunities that I think are worth looking at, or at least maybe even some cautions that are out there for some of them. So without further ado, let's get right into them. Kicking things off with SPY. Yesterday in my pre-market video, I talked about these two lines of support that I have on here for you, about 581 to 586. And you can see we came down the low price on this at 580.50. So pretty much hitting and then finding support right at that lower line there, which is about even with this candle that we had on December the 20th for that low. And we quickly recovered off of that. I said that 20-day was important. That's that blue line up at the top of this thing. Let me put it here a little bit closer for you. We're going to take down the EMAs. There we go. So you can focus on this blue moving average that we have here. We potentially have a head and shoulders pattern within a rising wedge pattern. That rising wedge pattern, if we go to the daily chart, you're going to see a little bit more. I'm sorry, the weekly chart. There we go. There's the weekly chart, the rising wedge that you can see head and shoulders inside of here. Now, mind you, neither one of these two things has been activated yet or confirmed yet. What we need to watch for is breaking outside and retesting of resistance. So let's go down to the daily chart and look more specifically at what I'm talking about. So what we're looking for here, and let me choose my paintbrush tool, is falling outside of this and then retesting here and then dropping off. That would be the confirmation. This point right here would be that confirmation of a further drop. We just don't have it yet. It's pretty much the same thing with this trend line that you see coming up across this way. That's the bottom part of that rising wedge. It would be coming down out of it like we did at retesting and then looking at rejection this way. So really this bottom support at about 581, if we get down below that, we get a full candle close below that, that's really where the wheels can start to fall off. If we go that direction, we don't have any confirmation that that's going to happen yet. Now, mind you, today is important. If we can get back on top of 586 and if we can break back into this rising wedge, we have a significant amount of upside. We still have room to put in all-time highs on the S&P 500 as tracked by SPY, which is the chart that I have here in front of you. So when I talk about this, don't think about it as bearish or bullish. Think about it as reading the charts and responding to what exactly we're looking at and where exactly we could go based on what we see from the price movements. And so we are really in a moment of indecision right now for which direction we could go. So if we make it back inside of here, this line at 609.83 that goes right across here, we didn't get there. We got rejected before we could even make it to that level. So about 610, we'll call it for SPY. That is the line to break. So if we can make it back inside the rising wedge, watch for a rejection, at least initially off that value. Breaking up above it is also a bullish thing, just so that we're aware of that. So right now we have a moment of indecision. We could end that way for the week because of next week's employment reports, that employment data, the JOLTS, the non-farm payrolls, and then also unemployment rate, which come out next week, and then followed by the CPI the week after that. Remember, the Fed is stuck between a rock and a hard place, as I've been talking about. They can't raise rates because of employment. They can't lower rates because of inflation. So they're kind of stuck. And that's why we see from the SEP in December, a very little movement in their federal funds rate. They said about 50 basis points worth of cuts expected over the next year from what they could tell from their last meeting. So let's get into the Qs. So for the Qs, we are currently up above the 50 EMA and SMA. That's the red and the pink lines that you see coming across your screen right here. And that is a good thing. If we find that bounce, that can be a significant bounce upward. And let me take down the EMAs. Again, the 20, just like what we had for SPY, QQQ tracking the NASDAQ 100. It is very important that if we find the 50-day as support, then that 20 days, the next resistance that we're really looking to see what exactly could happen. A rejection off the 20-day could send us back down, and then we're retesting the 50-day to see if that support still holds. Breaking up above the 20-day is confirmation of further bullishness. Sometimes words are hard, especially this early in the morning. Let's move on from there into IWM because we have two candles these last 2 days. Now, mind you, yesterday closing at 0.08% up from the previous day actually is an outperformance of the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 for the Russell 2000 ETF IWM. So for this one, we have two very indecisive candles. We have narrow bodies and we have long wicks off of that. So today could really make or break that, especially if we can get up above this 20-day, which is right at about 225. So that blue 20-day, absolutely significant to watch. We're up above the 50 and the 200. Very bullish with some near-term indecision. So still in bullish territory for all three of the indices, S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, and then also the Russell 2000. Drawdowns can be quick and fast, and then we can have a further rise. So I do think that we have some things coming up. Even the inauguration day itself coming up on January the 20th is in of itself sort of important given all the political drama that we've seen over the past several years. So the market could possibly sweat that as well outside of the economic reports. Right now, I think that inflation, employment data are the two big things that are going to be weighing on the market. So we'll see what we get from this. If we get up above the 20-day, that's going to be a bullish thing for us. It gives us a bit more levity to finally push on to that past all-time high that we got for the Russell 2000 ETF IWM. So Bitcoin, look at this. This is what I was talking about for super interesting. We potentially have a cross coming between the 20 and the 50. The faster moving average moving down over the slower one is a bearish sign, at least in the near term. Remember, once again, just like with the indices I just talked about, we're still in bullish territory, well into bullish territory for Bitcoin, as well as those indices. It does matter if we get that rejection off the 50 today. That's going to be important because we already crossed down through it. A rejection here could send us down lower. This trend line is also important because it comes off of the previous peaks that we had. Let me reset the view back here, going all the way back to April of 21 and then November of 21. So that's the trend line, and we've actually paid attention to it before. We actually have touches on this already confirming that this is a line of support for us and a very critical one at that. So let me go back down to the daily chart and we'll look more specifically at where we're at right now, just for some near-term indicators. The RSI is down near 50 as well. We could potentially cross back under 50 and go into bearish territory. Once again, being a daily chart, it'd still be in the near term, especially because we're up above the 200-day, which is overall bullish, with some, we'll call it near-term worries for that one. Like I said, I think the big catalyst day for crypto, as I've talked about in my previous videos, I do think that that's that inauguration day, and the few weeks that follow it are also going to be highly critical, that it could actually have some relatively large excitement going with it if we get good news for crypto. I think we're going to see that next boom, that next wave that pushes us up to the 120, 127,000, possibly more for Bitcoin, and that's going to be incredible. Near term, watch the 20 and the 50. Watch to see if we get a rejection. If we do, think near term bearish. Watch what happens around this trend line from the previous peaks that we had back in 2021. If we break up above those instead, then we want to watch for the all-time high that we had to be retested and see what happens. Will we get that rejection off of the all-time high or fall short of it, in which case might put us more into a consolidation type mode. We're just going to have to watch and see what happens next. XRP, look at this. We darn near have confirmation from this top trend line as an actual trend line. We're looking at the hourly chart right now. Let's go to the daily to take out some of the noise out of this, and we'll stretch that back out for you. There we go. That's beautiful. So for this bull pennant that we're in right now, overall bullish, above the 50, above the 200, above the 20. One of the top rated cryptos for that next ETF, the greatest probability, I believe, out of the altcoins, that's the front runner. I think it's XRP. Let me check into that some more before I put my name to it. But if that really is the case, if there really is an ETF coming for XRP in a pro-crypto environment, the next several weeks or months could be very exciting for XRP, making it much more likely that we hit those higher prices, pushing us up to at least, I think, a very easy conservative, just based off the current technicals, up to that $3.99, that $4 mark that you see up here. You can see some significant areas of resistance up above. This one near the all-time high. This one up, not all-time high, most recent high. And then up above that from about 318 to 343 is also a significant area of resistance. If we can make it up above that, that's where it really starts to open up to that $4. And then you can see $5. There's just a gulf in between of just free rise area up above that. So that would be very exciting for XRP if that's what we get from that. And you can see the formation that I have on here for you. And I can even hide some of those lines that we have on there so you can get a much cleaner view. And here we'll even take out some of the EMAs. I'll leave some of the simple moving averages on there. We're up above the 50, up above the 20, and we really got to break this top trend line. If we break, and especially if we retest this top trend line, so break up above, retest, that's where we can rocket ship off of that and see those higher prices. If we get rejected, once again, we're looking for support off that lower trend line. It is good to actually find support at the moving averages. That could send us back up to that top trend line again, maybe potentially allowing us to break to the upside on this one. The momentum has cooled off of this overbought territory that we were at, and now is in perfectly bullish territory as per the daily RSI for XRP. So how are the markets looking? How's crypto looking right now, especially as per Bitcoin being still the by a wide margin, the market cap leader that's there? Well, the S&P, NASDAQ 100, and then also the Russell 2000 stocks, they're kind of at a teetering, indecisive kind of moment. We could ramp up and go massively bullish again from here, or go back and retest the previous highs that we've had with each of those indices, or we could fall through that support for right now, and then we could find ourselves looking for where that bottom is exactly. Are we going to correct further from here? That's a big question that still remains to be answered, and we are at that moment. Today and next week are probably going to answer that question for us, for if we're going to fall through support or if we're going to bounce and have some nice green days to follow. I think inflation is actually going to be something that is going to surprise to the downside, or at least we'll see some easing that we haven't seen recently in the past few months. We're going to have to watch and see what happens. The January report is going to be absolutely huge as companies go through and potentially adjust their prices to see if the pricing power remains for them to continue to keep their earnings up. But then that also means inflation going up as well. Or are they losing that pricing power? Inflation starts to subside. It's tricky. It's pretty nuanced. I am out of time for this video though, so we're going to have to close that and put an earmark in that page, or dog ear that page. There we go, which I don't do to my actual books. I respect them too much, but we'll come back to that in another video. For crypto, for Bitcoin, once again, still at that moment of indecision, just like what we see with the stock market itself, crypto market, we could see that flip on a dime where we actually break up above those moving averages and really skyrocket. If we get rejected off of those moving averages like I talked about, watch for a correction period to take place. 85,000 for Bitcoin, maybe down to as low as 70,000. And then, that can happen pretty darn quickly. But remember, we're still in overall bullish territory. I think that we would have a wild run after that if in the near term we were to find those subdued prices between now and then, unless something massive changes economically or macroeconomically or geopolitically. I think that we still have a lot of upside to look forward to in the crypto market. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning. We'll see you next video.